Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to this live session where we're going to be covering the 7 ways that parents inadvertently make things worse with their teens. And I just want to emphasize that the purpose of this session isn't about finding blame or to create shame in any of us. This is about human patterns that all of us parents slip into sometimes. And the key is once you can see that the patterns are actually there, that's what allows you to shift out of those patterns. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Jenny Wong. I'm a clinical psychologist and a parent coach, and I've been doing this work for over 20 years. And I am in this because I fully understand and believe the importance of support for parents as they prepare their young people to launch into the world. So, say hi in the chat and tell me where you're watching from. And if you're watching the replay, just type replay in the comments so I can know. All right, so parenting teens is just not the same game as parenting kids. And we don't talk about that a whole lot. But what ends up happening is what used to work when they were little starts to become increasingly problematic. And so it is at the point of adolescence that our kids start building their own sense of identity. And now it truly is the first time parents are in a full-fledged relationship with a being who is aware of how they are actually separate from their family in many ways. And then they come to see the ways that they're, of course, always connected. And so a lot of the mistakes that I see parents making have to do with how this relationship gets navigated. And it's never a place of maliciousness or some kind of ill intent that drives parents to make these mistakes. It, if anything, tends to be an excess of love or just a parent being spread way too thin or just not feeling comfortable setting boundaries for themselves. And we all have habits we fall into that we default to when we're stretched thin, and those things start to emerge with our teens. So, as I go through these 7 things, don't think of them as failures, but as opportunities, because the more aware you are, the more you can actually reset it in real time. So drop a yes in the chat if parenting a teen feels totally different now to you compared to just even a couple of months ago or even a few years ago. All right, so let's go to mistake number 1. Mistake number 1 is overfunctioning or overdoing for our teens. What does this mean? This looks a lot like rescuing, overgiving, micromanaging. This is the parent I like to call the concierge parent, where they're busy running ahead, making sure, trying to foresee every potential problem and every need and desire their teen might have, and to set all those things up in play. And what ends up happening is that it gets to the point where teens don't even have to ask. The parent is already doing. This sets it up to create a pattern of ingratitude and then resentment on the side of the parent. It can foster a sense of entitlement in teens because they're just never given the cues to indicate that, okay, wait, this isn't just a given. I am in need of something. I need to ask for help, and then requesting the help. That move, even linguistically, helps mark to the teen, I'm asking for something. That's a gateway, a small gateway into then later being able to have gratitude. So the answer to this overfunctioning is boundaries around your effort and your resources. And this can be a super challenging thing for parents because parents feel very much like it is their job to keep bad things from happening to their kids. And this is especially true when they're little. But as they move into adolescence, it is increasingly our job to help them feel equipped to be able to take more mastery and control of their life. And this can be a hard thing to do, because at what point does their journey become their journey and we must relinquish it? And what can often happen is parents get into this either or place. Well, either I'm going to do it all for them or they're out on their own. And that's the common trap. If you can remember that what we're aiming for is just going right down the middle, then and having a little bit of both, that will get you much further. All right. Mistake number 2, taking behavior personally. This one is a really common thing. One thing to keep in mind is that teen behavior is developmental, and teen behavior says everything about the teen and actually says very little about you as the parent. If you can start from that premise, it becomes easier to not take it personally. So let me give you an example of how their developmental process may be contributing to things that you, if you just took from an emotional place, you would feel attacked. But if you can think of it from this developmental place, you might be able to slow yourself down and be able to remind yourself that this isn't about you, it's more about them. So an example, a mom and her 14-year-old daughter historically have been very close. And all of a sudden they were talking about an outing and with a shared friend. And mom made reference to how she was really excited to be going too. And her daughter said, "Oh, you're not going with us." And at that, mom, her feelings were understandably hurt. She took this, though, as a signal that her daughter was moving into kind of a mean girl phase and was excluding her on purpose to make her feel bad. The reality is that when kids move into adolescence, the outside world and everything outside of home and the family become incredibly fascinating. And so developmentally, they want to be with newer people. And the thought of parents being part of that is kind of a drag because they feel like it's going to slow down the fun. Again, has nothing to do with what that mom had given up till then, has nothing to do with how much that daughter has appreciated what mom has given. This was just one of those developmentally clunky moments, because remember, our teens have grown into their full-size feelings because the portion of their brain that controls emotions has fully matured. But the part that deals with impulse control and sorting through, or what's the best way to say things and will this hurt someone's feelings, that portion of the brain doesn't finish growing until the mid to late 20s. So a lot of what they're working out with us is going to be clumsy. They're going to be more, or they're going to sound more forceful than they intend. Or they may sound more like muted than they intended when they thought they were asking very clearly for something. They are working on communication skills. So we can't expect from them a kind of perfection or like this is going to come easily to them, because it just simply isn't. So the response in to this taking things personally is to pause. I literally teach clients, just stop in the middle of what you're doing. If you literally have to freeze, bar like not, you're not operating a moving vehicle or crossing a street, but freeze, breathe, ground yourself first, regulate yourself, and then respond. Keep in mind that teens are hardwired because of the way their emotional processing center has expanded. They're hardwired to be looking for the potential of threat anywhere. And threat can come in the form of judgment. It can come in the form of, being told that they need to change. It can come in the form of unexpected feedback. And so it's going to be very common for teens to just have that ongoing feeling of just, you're not going to get it. And again, if you take that personally, then it's going to lead to an argument that actually has nothing to do with where the teen is. The teen kind of starts the day from the vantage point that very few people are going to get them. They did this study where they showed faces of all different kinds of ages and races, genders, neutral faces. Teens, overwhelmingly more than any other age group, saw anger or negativity where there obviously was none. So if you can keep those things in mind, and that is going to then lead to this clunkiness of communication, they're going to do and say things that don't feel good, but they're not necessarily personal. All right, so let us go to mistake number 3. Avoiding discomfort or filling silence. One of the hardest things that parents struggle with is what to do with silence with their teen. And what we tend to do is we rush in to fill, to ask questions. How's it going? Why, you don't have anything to share? And then what starts to happen is that parents start to tell all sorts of stories to themselves about what it means that their teen is silent. And it creates this drama and this tension that leads parents to keep filling and filling, and then the demand keeps being put on the teen. When parents rush to fill silence, when parents rush to respond to silence or to any sense of silence because you sense the teen is feeling off, that rush sends an implicit message of your feelings, I'm afraid your feelings aren't survivable. That's why our anxiety as parents doesn't help them, because they're already kind of primed to be anxious about how they're doing to begin with. They need reassurance from us. Now, that's tough when you, as a parent, lose sight of what the big picture is, because when you get in the nitty-gritty of what are they following through on, what do they keep forgetting, what are they, all of those little things, they didn't clean up their room, they didn't do the dishes until I nagged them. When you get lost in all those details, it's very easy to lose sight of the big picture that is relating to what this adolescent needs to do to be able to launch. Primarily, they need to learn how to be able to make choices, to stand by those choices, to be accountable for them, to learn from them the outcomes of those things, and then adjust course. So, this is complicated stuff, isn't it? All right, if you're finding this helpful, hit the like button and also hit the share button so that more parents can find content like this. All right, mistake number 4, confusing boundaries for control. I hear this a lot. Parents saying to me, my teens aren't respecting my boundaries. And when I ask them what they mean by boundaries, what they really mean are the limits that they're setting. So let's just clarify. Boundaries are separate from limits. Boundaries are about what you will or won't do with your time, energy, resources, your behavior. Boundaries have everything to do with you as the parent. So if we're talking about your boundaries, that we're talking about what you have control of and what you will and will not put up with. I'm talking about my boundaries. That's what I will and will not put up with. That is in my control. So control says, do what I say. Control says, don't you talk back to me. Control says, I'm not going to listen to you if you're going to just yell at me like that. Boundaries are a different thing. Boundaries say, it's really hard for me to listen when someone's yelling at me. So when you're calmer, I'm happy to have this conversation, but I can't hear you right now. That's a boundary, because in it, what you're doing is you're demarcating where you are, what your participation will be, and the limits of it. And then the teen or the other person is given a choice around what and how they're going to handle that. So let me give another example. This happens a lot. Allowance is a place where parents struggle, where parents will set up a thing. They'll say, all right, you have $40 allowance for the week. The understanding is you have to do your chores. But then in the meantime, none of the chores get done and the $40 keeps going. On top of that, incidentals are also getting paid for this extra activity. Oh, they wanted to DoorDash this, they wanted to Uber Eats that. Oh, there was this outing with friends, they wanted to go do that. And the parent is feeling like it doesn't matter what they do, there's just never enough. The money is just pouring out. And the parent doesn't mind in this case because, from the parent's perspective, they're blessed enough to be able to do these things for them. But what they keep encountering is that the kid is getting to the point where she's almost ordering her around and then just not being appreciative of all of what is happening. And that's a situation where we have to help teens understand that modulation and moderation is something necessary. It is an aspect of being an adult, is recognizing we all have limits in some ways. And so a way for parents to get a better sense of control for themselves is by clarifying their boundaries with their kids. So they could say, all right, listen, I'm just giving you $40 a week as allowance. If you want anything extra above $40, you're going to have to make sure these chores are done, and then you can set whatever other expectations are there, or say, anything outside of that is your problem. Maybe you need to go get a job, whatever. That sets a boundary. Now, your teen can still do what they're going to do, but they will. Now, you can say to them, I'm happy to problem solve with you. And so maybe the teen will come to you and say, well, are there any extra jobs I can do around the house to earn some money? And so in this way, the interpersonal effectiveness for the teen starts to improve because of the parents' clarity about boundaries as about being about them, not about controlling the teen. So parents think boundaries are like, well, if my kid isn't going to study, then I'm going to shut off social media. That's setting a limit. That's limiting the resource that's available so that their distractions are limited and they can focus on their work. So that's different than a boundary. Another example of how boundaries can get misunderstood. One kid said to their parent recently, my boundary is this: when I ask you to hand me something, I expect you to hand it to me right away. And that's another great example of a misunderstanding where, no, that's just really what that teen wanted. And that's what she ideally wanted. And how the parent responded or didn't respond, that would reflect what the parent's own boundaries were. So when you can get clear about those things, you can more easily move away from control tactics to more connection-based tactics. Okay. Mistake number 5, needing to be right. There is such a huge difference between needing to be right and being effective. Being right doesn't increase your influence. It doesn't increase your authority. What it does is it increases the gap between you and your teen. So let me give you an example. Your teen comes home from school and they say, everyone hates me in this class. And you, having listened to 2 weeks of your teen coming home and feeling bad about everything, say, well, I doubt that it was everyone, because part of you is logically thinking, well, everyone's a lot of people, and maybe if they could differentiate how it wasn't everyone, it would feel less bad. And so you say, well, not everyone. And then the teen expectedly would say, forget it, you don't understand, and then storms away. What's different, and what would be different, is if you validated first. and to say it's really awful when it feels like the whole world's against you. And when you've had a few bad days like that, it's really easy to think that too. And it may not necessarily be the case. So you're making room for both. Sometimes when we try to get at the accuracy of something, is it true? And we miss what the actual feeling is of our teen. We're moving away from where the connection is. Connection is found where our teen's emotional truth lies. And so if we can target where their feelings are and where their pain is, that's where we can connect to them. Not to look at them in their pain and say, well, actually, the way you're looking at it is wrong. And let me tell you the right way to look at it. That's not what they want to hear. What they want to hear is that we can see that they're in pain and that we're not rushing to fix things because we're not catastrophizing it. We're not going to minimize it either. So type right down in the comments below if you've ever gotten caught in that trap of needing to be right. All right, let's move on to mistake number 6, 0 tolerance for failure. Parents often step in too quickly to prevent mistakes, and this will happen in athletics and academia, where in the name of college applications, in the name of scholarships, in the name of the future, parents will almost serve as foam insulation to fill every potential gap there is to meet the needs of their kids so their kids never feel the impact of failure. I cannot tell you how big a disservice this is for your kids. Failure is an important teacher in life. Failure is part of it, is an ingredient of what builds resilience and our ability to dwell with them during those times that they experience rejection or disappointment. Our ability to be there with them is part of what will be whether they can bounce back or not. So these things matter significantly. And when we demonstrate to our teens that we can't tolerate them screwing up, they feel that. And inadvertently, what they start learning is that mistakes aren't allowed. And that becomes the standard that they start holding themselves to, which is such a difficult and impossible standard to do. So teens don't build resilience without trial and error. We want them to get comfortable getting their hands dirty. We want them to be comfortable making decisions, even though they might be wrong, because we want them to take ownership of their life. So give them room to make choices. Give them room to make mistakes, because that is the only way that, number one, they learn that mistakes are part of being human. Number two, they get to build resilience. Number three, they get to build a sense of mastery. These are all really fantastic things. And basically what you need to do as parents of teens is move out of the way of reality. Parents will often ask, like, what consequence should I make for the fact that they didn't study? The consequence is already going to be there when they don't get the grade that could have been there had they studied more. And it's you getting out of the way and allowing that data to come through that then gives the teen an opportunity to change course. What happens is if everything is done in the name of preventing that bad grade, it turns into a knockdown drag out between a teen who maybe isn't feeling like they want to be most studious and parents who are insisting that that mistake can't happen. So then what the teen is learning in that moment is, oh, it's really important that I study for this grade. What they're learning is, God, my parents are so controlling. They don't trust me and they're making a big deal about this, and any number of misinterpretations, all of which have nothing to do with the lesson that you as a parent want your teen to learn. So let natural consequences teach. Okay, let's go on to our final mistake. Mistake number 7, emotional overload. Parents' dysregulation emotionally amplifies whatever conflict there is with the teen. Whether you're speaking or not speaking, the energy you carry, it's there. And what happens is teens learn to fear emotions. So, the standard idea is like there's a teen who's crying, and in the old days, the running joke was, you think that's sad, I'll give you something to cry about. Well, that's kind of what they get from us if we get super dysregulated about the fact that they're dysregulated. The best indicator of how our teens recover from adversity is how supported they feel by us in the face of that adversity. If we're emotionally all over the place, whether it's based in fear or anxiety or sadness, they feel it as anger and as disappointment and as criticism and as a message that they're not enough. So the strategy is to regulate yourself first. First, so that you're not operating from fear, and that it doesn't matter if you have the perfect words, if it's still coming from fear in you, it's not going to land right. So the more comfortable you can get with your emotions, because we get triggered when we see our kids get emotional. The more you can just notice, like, wow, my emotions are really hot right now. Just noticing that will help you bring the temperature down and slow you down. All right. So which of the 7 hit home for you? Drop the number down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about that. So let's recap the 7 mistakes we talked about. Number 1, overfunctioning or doing too much. Number 2, taking behavior personally. Number 3, avoiding discomfort and rushing to fill silences. Number 4, confusing boundaries with control. Number 5, needing to be right. Number 6, zero tolerance for failure. And number 7, being emotionally overloaded. All right. So before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop one word down below in the chat or in the comments if you're on replay. What's one thing that you're taking away from this video? And if this was helpful, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out future lives. If you want to go deeper, check the link on the channel page. If you want to schedule a free 30-minute consult, there's one waiting for you if you're looking for help. And it was great being with you guys. Take care.